Who do you think we'd be in Codename Kids Next Door?
Absolutely, I'm number one.
I'm number...
No.
Are you kidding me?
John is the bald one. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but I'm the leader.
You're
wow,
not,
we're
you're
doing
not the
this?
leader. You're not the leader. You're number 4, Cody.
What?
What? He's number 4?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that show nearly enough to know which ones are which.
I'm the fat genius, so I'm number 2.
You think you're number 2?
Yes.
You weren't fat or a genius.
This is the argument that tears the... Chris, you're number 3.
Okay.
Chris is 5 at best.
What?
1,
I'm
2,
not a sassy black woman.
3.
Okay, hold on. Kyle.
No, that was
Kyle, we
pathetic,
were having a
wasn't
conversation here.
it? Yeah, I know.
we were trying to hash this out. By the way, do you think it's
I
weird that they relegated?
Listen.
I do agree that I'm 3.
All right, let's clap sync and just get this conversation over.
Yeah,
All right, here it is. 1, 2, 3, clap.
Welcome, everybody, to In the Buff.
Here we are.
I'm your host, Chris. Today we've got John, Kyle, Cody, Scott, and myself.
He's really doing some squatters' rights on calling himself host of the podcast.
Yeah.
That's
And,
2 weeks in a row.
Let's get some comments from Cody.
Let's do some comments. On Final Fantasy X Omega Ruins guide video, Novocaine 33 coming in with some additional strats for anybody interested. He says, first strike weapon for Tidus. Use Provoke 4 MP on Great Marlborough. Keep Tidus on the field and Marlborough will never use Bad Breath. Same strat for Spirit and it will never use Poison Mist. Sleep Buster Tomberry. Demon Lith, use Silence Buster, it can't cast Curse, and have Stoneproof armor equipped. Easy game.
Wow, that advice sure numbed my gums.
Is there a reason they named a boss after his cigarette company?
Yeah, because it gives you bad breath. It gives you, smoker's lung.
It's possible the enemy is named before the cigarettes.
I have no idea.
No?
I really doubt that.
Final Fantasy X Orange Celestial Weapon Guide Masamune video from Makai5267. He's got Tidus as his profile picture. This video
that's
is
how you
actually
know it.
really amazing because it can help you get all the species conquest monsters as well. Thanks.
Oh,
You're welcome.
I
What
suppose.
an odd, stilted way to...
which one was that? Which video was that?
Makai5267, Orange Celestial Weapon Guide Masamune video.
Ah, dude. My favorite thing about that video is, as soon as I posted it, dude commented on there, is like, 7 years later, dude still sounds dead.
Yeah. Oh, that's one of the newer ones. Great.
Yep.
Great.
Wow,
Awesome.
we really got through those comments quick.
Oh. Yeah. Well, geometry.
Right.
It's what someone would say if they suddenly turned into a tree.
We had a pretty heated debate before this. Do we want to finish that?
Well, I
Or
am
are we just
completely
gonna move on
lost
like
in
a-
what that debate even was at this stage. Cause
There are 5 of us, and there are 5 numbers
In
in
Codename
Codename Kids Next Door.
I'm aware of the joke that you guys were putting forward.
John is very
haven't
clearly the
watched it.
baldest among us.
Okay, but he's also not the most British among us.
John, giving your accent.
Oi, mate.
That's pretty good, actually.
Slap down with some shrimp on the bobby.
Oh, no.
That's really
Oh,
good.
no.
Scott's giving you a run for your money, John.
That's fine.
See, while Wintermute sounds like a British name, Lake sounds like a name somebody chose to hide their heritage.
Really?
He was probably John Locke.
Interestingly
before.
enough,
Which is
Wintermute
way more British.
Wintermute is actually a name change from the original, which I believe was probably a derivative of German.
Probably
I can believe that.
Wintervat.
I actually know the answer to this.
Yeah, Cody and I know what that is. It's
Wintermute is an Anglicanized version of the German surname Windemuth, which itself is a corruption of an old German word, Wendermut, which means a fickle or inconstant person.
Oh,
That
Oh,
explains nothing. Because all of you are so big-headed and into what you're into.
oh my
And not fickle at all.
goodness.
Not
Or
fickle.
inconstant.
No.
Oh, I thought you said incontinent. I could agree with the incontinence.
You know who else was big-headed and really into what they're into? Number 4.
Remember that episode where he gets Super Saiyan hair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I remember from Code
But
Name
he's
Kids
also
Next
the
Door.
shortest, so that's Cody then.
Exactly.
Oh.
Come on.
Okay.
Why you gotta just cut me down like that, Chris?
Hold on a second.
Your
Hold on a second.
genetics did. I didn't.
We need to hammer home. The higher your number, it doesn't mean the less important you are.
I was gonna say,
Are you implying that number 5 is less important than number 4?
No, number 5 is the number 2. Number 5 is second in command and was in charge of the K and D of that treehouse before
I don't
one
think
showed
that's
up.
true.
That is true. Get on my level of lore.
Oh my goodness.
Get on my
You
level
just
of
said
lore.
K&D like FBI, KGB.
Well, I've always
Bruh.
accepted that I am a young Asian woman in my
So you're
heart.
thinking you're picking number 3?
I'm picking number 3.
But you're not like.
I really thought Chris would be number 3.
Yeah, I'm ditzy.
Chris, shut the fuck up. You hardcore own number 2. You immediately jumped on
Hold on a
that
second.
almost as
Yeah.
hard as Cody jumped on the
You
leader.
can't defend. You were defending you being number 2. Now you can't defend you being number 3. You
You
can't be all of them.
two-faced bitch.
Wait, unless Chris is all of them.
It could be yeah. He could be a sassy Asian woman, and a sassy black woman, and a bald British man, and a rotund American kid, and the number 4.
All right, we need to have a group meeting without Kyle real fast. Kyle gets a lot of time to speak after this because it's his corner. But so like, all right, group meeting without Kyle. He's constantly like talking about how he's like the manager of Double Buff. So like, do we play into this and like give him the number 1 role, or like I'll take number 5 if that's the case.
You just want
Honestly,
someone with hair.
I'm thinking about just letting the ball keep rolling and then foisting all of the responsibilities on him when the time comes.
Right.
Exactly. Would we file bankruptcy? Rumble? Oh yeah.
I've made sure to not sign anything.
See, that's the problem because so far I've signed everything.
Yeah. It's your
Right,
ass on
that
the
is an
line,
issue.
John.
Yeah.
When
That's an issue.
bankruptcy comes, they're coming for your ass.
Well, that also means that
Time to
John,
take out the trash.
that also means that John signed an
No one.
annulment.
I think I get what joke you're making, John. I think, but no one in the world will know what the hell you're talking about.
People in Ohio will.
Hey, coroners, huh?
Like a pizza?
Corners like a pizza. Yeah.
All the
Kyle,
corners
how
in
do
the
you
middle.
cut your pizza?
I don't like pizza, so I usually eat it in
How
one giant
fucking
roll.
dare you?
That's
Wait,
like,
hold on. That means that would tell me you really like pizza.
No, I wanted to get it over with as fast as possible, so you have to just
You can
swallow
just
the whole
choose-
thing.
You can just choose not to eat it.
So
Yeah, you don't have to eat the pizza.
Oh, I don't have to just unhinge my jaw and shove an entire pizza down my gullet.
No.
Usually, no. Yeah.
Kyle, you just unlocked a memory from so long ago. In middle school, we went to the Czechoslovakian club downtown, and an old Czech lady
Timely.
was like, "You need to eat so much more food," and I'm already a fat kid. I don't know why old Czech women want you to eat so much.
You're stereotyping.
Chris, that was your real mother.
But she she made a one of those rolls where you take your dough and you put all your fillings in, you roll it up, and then you bake it, right? And she made a pizza one of those, and it was delicious.
Like a
Great,
Hot Pocket?
Thanks.
Yeah.
No, like a cinnamon roll pizza, like a cake log,
But pizza?
but pizza.
Uh,
Right.
All right.
I'm glad they're no longer a country.
Okay. So how you eat your pizza aside,
Oh God.
Kyle,
yeah.
what's your corner
You just
for
made
today?
Chris
Okay.
stop being able to start his fucking engine.
So as I'm sure you guys are aware, I am actually in several D&D games. And I literally just got done with one of what is now probably my favorite game 20 minutes ago, because that's how long it took us to get to this point in this conversation. To put some, and I just want to gush because it was fucking fantastic of a game, and I loved it.
Well, why don't you gush all over us?
I'm about to, damn it. So for some context,
Are we not doing phrasing anymore?
this is in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. All of us are completely brand new. I think my character in this game has now taken over as my favorite character of all time. The initial pitch that we got for this game is essentially that we are going to be coming from a country that is known for nothing but information gathering and information brokering, and we are going to be spies. So all of us independently came to that pitch for first session with the intention of being pirates. After we had all agreed we're going to be super spies. So we're already off onto a good start. We get our first mission, which is basically some informant has gotten Black Bag captured, and we have to go find out where their contact is, because they went dark too, and if we can find out anything about them and what's going on. That's not what we're talking about, because we have almost wholeheartedly sidetracked that mission, even though that's the only reason we're here. Because we were trying to get a hold of some cash, because in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, there is very little in the way of gold. And we are running out really, really fast for all the stuff we need. And so we're like, what are some side jobs that we could do to earn a little bit of cash to get our main job, like, funded? And we stumble into what is a gigantic child trafficking ring.
Great.
We're in a country.
If I had a nickel.
I know, right? We're in a country that is primarily, like, run by elves, and, like, in the city that we're in, like, half of the non-elven children are just disappearing over the course of, like, the last 3 months. Over 200 children have been kidnapped, and have just, like, nobody's doing anything about it.
Drain the swamp.
So we start looking for any leads we can find. We end up rummaging through the sewers. We find a child torture basement connected to the sewers in some noble's house. So ends up we get in there, we find some information, we release what children were in there, and then we burn his house down. While he was away after we had shot him in the sewers. And he had captured us, and we broke ourselves out. Long story short, we are now running around the sewers looking for where he bought the children from. We break into the little underground prison complex they have that is sitting underneath the auction house where they sell the children. And our combat session starts today with us having climbed up into the auction house. The curtain raises while we are on the stage, and the dude running the whole show is standing in front of us with 3 children on change, and we are outnumbered like 2 to 1. And he's like, so what's it gonna cost to get you guys to turn around and get the fuck out of my business? And our one person who has face skills, who has any interest in not getting into a fight right now, is like, well, here's some of the things that we might be interested in, which is essentially getting us further into our rescuing our contact mission. The other 3 of us are all looking at each other and going, so we came here to shoot this guy. How's that gonna go? And our resident fighter just looks over at our druid, who's the one doing the talking at the moment, and just goes like, what's the deal? Why Why aren't we taking him down? Like, what's the play? What's the play you've got going on here? At which point the big dude in charge is like, well, she's lying to me currently about trying to get these children and whatnot. And anyway, combat kicks off, and opening move, we get loaded with crossbow bolts. We are in a bad way, and it continues to go poorly, where we are slowly being whittled down by enemies shooting crossbows at us. We get into melee with the big dude and his henchmen right next to us, and, like, everyone is going down very, very slowly. We're taking down the henchmen around us, and our fighter finally, like, corners the big dude from hiding behind the children up against the drop of the stage in the auction house. And she swings for him, and he just grabs one of the children and puts it in the way.
Okay.
To make her miss.
Sound tactic.
So we're like, this is going very poorly. The druid tries to knock him off the stage with a water jet, and nearly critically fumbles, almost insta-killing the child that he's using as a shield. And, like, we get worn down. Like, more enemies start showing up because he calls in for reinforcements. Like, a mini-boss shows up, backstabbing our cleric, who just happens to very nearly get out of the way. And it gets down to the point where we're all on, like, under 5 hit points. Everyone in the party is under, like, 5. And then he crits the fighter standing next to him, instantly almost completely killing her in one go.
How strong are these people we're talking about here? Like your team?
Our team, we're all level 1s.
Okay.
Oh.
The fighter had 22 hit points, got knocked down to 7 over the course of, like, 3 combats, and, like, 4 turns so far here. So she was at 7 and got hit for 22. So she went straight down. The cleric is now on 2 hit points and has 1 heal left. The druid has no, has basically walked into the big guy's square because she's a pixie and tiny, so walks into the square and shocking grasps him to get him to move. He ends up scampering sideways to take me because I'm on the side stage hiding behind his, announcer podium, taking pot shots at people because I'm a gunslinger. And he's like, well, these two are pretty much down for the count. Let's deal with the one who can actually hurt us on the way out. At which point, the cleric has run across the stage to get away from the sneaky fighter that showed up in the middle of combat, and just is like, hey, is this a podium attached to the floor? Pulls out a pretty high perception check that the DM asked for, and she's like, I'm just gonna shove it into him and off the stage. And she fucking nat 20s, critical success, shoves him and the podium off the stage, and it pins him underneath it. So at this stage, he is now, there was a couple of things that happened for it. So the electricity is still coursing through him, so every turn he's getting tased. He had an alchemist fire set on him, so he is now under a podium, on fire, being continuously tased, and then the cleric jumps down and starts beating him with her lute. And
Why does the cleric have a lute?
So her god is the god of lies, and his preferred, deific weapon is the battle lute. So that's what she uses in combat.
Twang, bang, ding,
Yes,
bang.
we make that joke every time, is that just every time she hits someone, and she's very strong and is one of the primary melee combatants, and she just beats people to death with a lute. And it is amazing.
You created El Kabong.
Yes. Yes, we have.
I don't know who that is.
It's a Hanna-Barbera character.
So it gets to the point where he is just barely breaks himself out and is able to pat himself off of the fire. But he's still taking a little bit of damage. And Jess has let us know because Jess is my DM. He is at like 1 hit point. He is literally about to die. So everyone in the room is at the absolute worst shape, and I am right in front of his face. I'm a kobold, so I'm like 2'11". I am tiny, but right now I am eye level with him, and I just pull out my pistol and load, stare him down with it. So, okay. So at the beginning of this, you wanted to make a deal. So what are you going to offer us for your life to walk out of here? And Jess has me make an intimidate check. I kind of I succeed pretty well. I roll like a 24 or something. And he's starting to, like, in my mind, I'm like, I don't care what he says at this stage. I'm just going to shoot him the instant he says anything. And so she starts to say whatever it was that he was about to offer, and I immediately roll my dice and roll a nat 1. And my gun just immediately goes off and misses him completely. It was fantastic. And Jess is like, real quick, roll me a deception check to see if you can play that off. And I nat 20 the deception check to intimidate this guy into thinking.
Did you mean to do that? Yeah.
So the entire thing ends with us basically being able to take the children away from him, and he offers us a maps of the prison that the fugitive has been locked up in, and guard schedules and names of all of the prisoners and what rooms they're in, and he's even offered to get us into this. And Jess basically told us there were several deities watching this all go down, and this dude's a businessman, so he's like, she basically tells us he's not gonna go back on his word with this.
Wait, so how do you know there's several deities watching?
So right before we got into this, this is one of those things where it's a fun campaign where all of us are actually very religious in character. And all of us were basically in the previous combat where we had gotten like 15 children out of this dungeon. We had basically prayed to our gods to be like, to take care of them in the off chance that we didn't survive this next bit so that they could get home to their parents safely. And the actual cleric got a almost divine message back, like, yeah, we're fucking watching, you better do this right. So that's how we knew that they were watching us, and so we got a pretty hard guarantee that this was gonna go well for us. It was just a fun session. So it was a hard turnaround at the best of times, just because the dice were really on our side. Just loving
That's
that
what John always says.
Emergent storytelling that comes in with D&D all the time.
John, what's the line?
Dude, D&D writes itself.
You could put it on a shirt.
That's our first
John
merch.
Constantly says it. No, that's not our merch.
It is.
I
now.
will not sanction that.
It is. It's ours now.
I only want our merch to be like, it's the kind of, I want our merch to be the kind of thing you look at and be like, is that a butthole? And then you look at it closer, you're like, oh, wait, no, that's not a butthole. I don't know what it is, but it's not a butthole. I want every shirt to look like that.
Like a butthole?
No, it's not a butthole.
A camouflage butthole.
You think at first, like, your gut instinct is, he said, no, okay, it's not a butthole. I want people to be frightened when they first see it. Like, whoa, is that guy wearing a shirt of a butthole?
If a forest had a butthole, would that be it? No, dude, this is just a camo jacket.
Okay.
What?
So, unfortunately, that's all I have to gush about today. In regards to
it sounds like you had a lot of fun.
I had an enormous amount of fun. Pathfinder 2nd Edition is swiftly becoming my favorite system.
Yeah.
I could gush about it, but I don't feel like talking about mechanics all the night.
There is
I know
one
nothing
thing
about Pathfinder.
I will
2E.
spark a small debate about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I think everybody can definitely like chime in on this, but how much of an impact do you give the natural 1, natural 20 flip over? Like, if somebody rolls a natural 1 and then immediately rolls a natural 20, how much weight do you give that 20?
Are you talking like as a DM?
Yeah.
So I would say it really depends on the circumstances of what's going on. Like in the instance that I literally just talked about, apparently it only helped. Like narratively, it really depends what the nat 1 was and what the nat 20 was for. So I could see it sometimes just kind of canceling out. Sometimes they just play into each other so perfectly that like it's much better for the story for it to be grossly exaggerated one way or the other.
My gut tells me we're on neutral territory.
See, that's kind of what I think. And I also, after hearing Kyle say that, that makes sense to me. Because in your game, I rolled 2 natural 20s in a row, and then a natural 1. And it made me just kind of waste my turn. But like, most of the time, shut the fuck up, Chris. You made me roll a strength check to open a fucking door.
You were tiny.
I was small.
You were a little
Okay.
man.
It's either that or CR21 Dragon. Like, that's the options we have, John.
Children-
If you have to roll a strength check to open a
Children
fucking
can
door,
open normal-ass doors!
It was a big door.
Are you kidding me? No, it wasn't!
It was.
You didn't describe it that way at all!
it was big to you.
Shut the fuck up! I think if somebody rolls a natural 1 and then into a natural 20, I think I slightly favor towards the 20. More because I want to play to the favor of the players.
Yeah.
I've talked about this before a lot, where maybe this is an overshare. I love to be punished. I love
I will keep
when-
that in mind.
Like, I love the idea that my character really biffed it hard. With the flip side of, I didn't biff it at all when I roll a natural 20. In fact, I kind of fucking nailed it when I rolled a natural 20.
Well, you've also got to remember, like, the majority of the time, you're succeeding.
Yeah.
So, getting to balance that out with some real biffs, it's fun.
Yeah. And I think a lot of my enjoyment from watching people play D&D is creativity with, like, let's say an example is it's not my turn in combat. And John, you roll a natural 1. I enjoy what might happen next. I enjoy thinking like, wow, how is he going to fuck this one? You know, he was set up to succeed. How is he going to screw this up? And I like just theater of the minding, because it just feels very real a lot of the time when it's messy and it's not like SEAL Team 6 breaking in to kill a Dargan.
Right. Okay.
Like in the session we just had, it went pretty great. Don't get me wrong, Kyle. I say we just had, but a couple weeks ago, we fought a Dargan in Kyle's game.
We can talk about that too.
And I wrestled it into submission and started choking it because my character is just a grappler. And while I'm choking this Dargan, it can still move around, obviously. Pathfinder's a bit weird. Like, there's no rules against me a medium creature grappling a huge creature or anything. It's just that he has bonuses against being grappled because he's so big. But if I can overcome those, then great. And I easily can, with my specialties. So I'm just grappling this dragon, and I like to imagine, like, all the wacky ways I'm doing it, like, it got pretty messy. Like, I imagined twisting around. I had grabbed his wing, and I imagined, like, twisting it around and basically making it a big, gross, broken boned rope that I was wrapping around his neck, and I started strangling him with.
Which I believe I recommended, or, during that period where you were trying to strangle it with its own arm, I believe it smashed you into a pillar with just a big body slam as it charged into it.
And then it lit itself on fire.
That was actually the second stage because you fucking suffocated the damn thing to death.
Right.
It's one of those things where old Pathfinder is, if you can't breathe and you don't spend an action to hold your breath, you just immediately start dying.
Yeah.
So it's didn't even go through its hit point threshold and just jumped to the second stage.
Like, that was messy,
That's-
all in all, but we nailed it. Like, we did great.
Cody?
Go ahead.
He's dead.
Oh, he tabbed out.
I was just waiting for you to say
So-
something.
So, your big bad that you've been building up for several sessions.
Alleged big bad.
Alleged big bad that you been building up for several sessions gets choked out in 3 rounds.
Psychothapologist.
Do you fudge a couple stats or something to make the fight more entertaining?
I will reserve my answer so as
Till after
not...
your campaign ends?
Maybe. No, I think I wouldn't like fudge any stats like that, though I do have contingency plans for notable bosses. The same way you'd have something like a legendary resistance, where it's just like, oh, this magical spell would just utterly trivialize this combat. Well, magical or legendary resistance, it doesn't work.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's kind of a bullshit mechanic. It's kind of kludgy. I've got other ideas on how to extend a fight if it's going too quickly. But
Okay.
with the caveat that I have to have those ideas in place before the battle starts. I can't just like ad hoc make a battle harder just because it's not going the way I want it to. Like, there's been plenty of fights that
Alright.
that you guys have had in my campaign where it's just like, oh, it's done. It's immediately done. Like, you just had like a really good plan going into it, and I didn't have anything to counter it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that's
That's just
part
what
of the game.
happened here,
That should
too.
that should be your reward for good planning.
Exactly. It feels good. Like, and I'm not a creative person, so I don't know. I always say that. What I mean to say is, I am not creative enough to come up with a alternative to this, but Legendary Resistance is one of those feels bad, man.
Mhm.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I just used my level 5 spell that, granted, of course, it would have trivialized this encounter, but you just said no, and I just had to be like, yeah, I guess that's in the rules. That does suck.
Yeah.
But it'll suck for everybody.
What is it even, like, what is this mechanic even modeling in the game? Like,
Right.
it's hard to say. And then there's
All I
this...
can even imagine is like in an anime when a guy just like, yeah, and he breaks out of a spell or whatever.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I always have this idea that I've done it a couple of times. One, when you guys were in the Astral Sea and you were in that bar fight, one of the main boss guy had he had legendary resistances, but they were tied to basically magical items.
Right, yeah, the glowing whatevers.
Right. They would, break. So there'd be a narrative way to how he was negating these spells. And then the other time was when you were fighting the Naga, Explicitia Defilis. Her headdress had a similar thing where she had gems in it that counted as her legendary resistances. And every time she used a legendary resistance, it broke one of the gems, causing the headdress to become less valuable, so you couldn't sell it for as much.
Well, you can't use a legendary resistance against a fucking hammer.
I was about to say, your most cinematic boss fight that you've made, in my opinion, was the lady one. It felt like at least my memory of it is like a movie. It feels like an episode of some sort of drama where we bust in, everybody's having their job, we're having actual tension and fights, stuff leads to stuff. We lit that area on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we have done that? But it led to her being kicked into it.
Yeah.
Dude, the combination of silence and then Earthen Grasp to just keep her in the silence was game changing.
That's basically what you guys did to me.
Yeah. Because I strangled him?
So it was a combination of Isla's blood puppet, which prevented it from moving, which I had a counter to. It wasn't something I planned to actually have a counter to. It just happened to be something that the template I applied to the dragon had, and I looked at it, it was like, oh, by the way, this thing can teleport with fire, because that's just part of the rule set I gave it for whatever reason. 4 months ago when I designed this thing.
Jesus Christ.
And like, I didn't even read that when I did it. I just copy and pasted the whole stat block over, and then I was like, oh, it can teleport to other fires. That's cool. Would be really helpful right now since it can't fucking move and it needs to get away from Isla in order to break her spell. And then we were like, it'll just teleport. And then you're like, wait, I'm strangling it. Doesn't it need to make a concentration check? Yes. And that's what...
When I started strangling it, I wasn't even thinking, like, seriously. I forgot I could strangle. And the first thing it did, it's a dragon, it breathes fire at us. So I'm like, oh, maybe if I start strangling it, it can't do that.
It won't be able to breathe
That's
fire at
literally
you?
what it was.
Well,
That's
unfortunately.
Jesus.
It was one of those weird things where you guys had the perfect combination to just thwart anything I was attempting to do.
And I wouldn't even bat an eye if you had just said, okay, it uses one of its attacks to breathe every turn.
Well, it couldn't do that because Ilo had blood puppet in it. It couldn't physically move without her direction.
Well, I mean, it was still running around with me on top of it.
Oh, well, it didn't need to breathe at the stage where it was on fire. It was made of fire at that stage, and the only reason you could hold it was because of your ghost punching arms.
Right.
Like, if you didn't
I
have
would
the
have been
ghost...
totally okay with you just saying, hey, nope, you fall off, because he's fire. You can't grapple fire.
It was one of those things where every single thing that would have been, oh, we can just negate, I can just get it to go away, happened to have a thing. Every single thing was like, nope, I don't have it. You guys had an answer for every single thing.
Usually the answer is just beat it to death.
Really, it normally is.
Yeah, it was.
Surprisingly, it was still an incredibly difficult fight for completely different reasons.
Right.
Which was entirely because there were 16 baby dragons.
Baby dragon.
And they nearly ripped you guys to pieces like a pack of piranha.
See,
Right.
that's where, so in 5e, I'm less willing to give my boss more of these, like, resistances and actions if I'm going to give them a lot of minions to fight the fight with. Because looking at how 5e did it, it was clearly something just to be able to turn, the action economy slightly more in the big bad's favor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Strahd didn't have these legendary resistances, you guys killed him in 2 rounds and it wasn't even a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
But I'm going to push back. For the sake of your player, that can be more fun to have him have all these minions, because I didn't get to do dick
That's
in that fight.
something that I've actually taken note of, is that also not having the minions, if this character has an answer for one of the characters, that person does not have fun. I learned a lot from the Strahd fight, but it made me really reflect back on it and think, if you guys had an immediate answer for him, would I have fudged the dice for cinematic purposes? Would I have changed things last minute for cinematic purposes?
I've never been in the DM's chair. I have a firm stance against fudging.
I guess I shouldn't say fudge the dice. My bad. But, like, should I buffer his health? Should I add to his attack? Like,
Yeah, I call that
should I
fudging
do...
too.
Okay. Because, to me, you guys have played this game for a year. You guys have known full-heartedly... Like, every time you guys leveled up, I buffed up Strahd a little bit. Because at any given time, you guys could just say, hey, I want to march into Ravenloft and fight Strahd.
Right.
And I don't want him to, like... Original Strahd, Andy found out when he was doing something with his campaign, he was like, dude, you buff Strahd a lot. And I'm like, yeah, he's meant for a fucking level 6 encounter. Like, this is
And
not
you're
a
level 13 or something.
Yeah, like, you guys kick that door open, and Strahd's like, this is my domain, and then you guys fucking gag him and butt fuck him? Like, come on. Ain't nothing happening there.
We were level 13 and also had all independently, for the most part, had all independently gotten some kind of crazy buff.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Justin was like level 17, no joke.
Yeah.
Like, he
'Cause
was
he had
way
made a
higher than
deal
you
or
guys
something.
because of a demon pack that I gave him.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that I have to think about too with my encounter design. Because, well, for example, when you guys were leaving the Astral Sea, I had you just fight a, what is it called? It was an asteroid, whatever that asteroid creature is.
The mimic.
Yeah, it was like
thing.
a mimic asteroid. But it was just like a single target thing that was like really strong all by itself.
Mm-hmm.
But then, Tybalt just uses his stone rune and incapacitates it, and then there is no fight. We're just going
Right,
through
yep.
the motions until it's out of HP. Conversely, talking about the lady fight again, you had the lady, which you guys had incapacitated with Earthen Grasp and Silence for the most part, but then you also had lieutenants in that fight. You had her Elven Priest, you had the Master of Ravens, and then you had a couple of smaller things like zombies or whatever to fight alongside. So even if you took care of one aspect of the fight, there were all these other pieces that you still had to contend with throughout the whole thing.
I think the guy, his name's Birdman, actually. Is what you're
I remember that was the first fight that you were, like, really trying to quietly guide us to fucking take out the minions.
Was that?
Because, like, we were like, you were trying to, like, just paint that picture that, like, hey, we should take out the minions. But, like, at the same time, we were so stuck on the idea of, like, we're trying to save everybody we can. So
Yeah, exactly.
we don't want to kill the minions. But they are beating the fucking shit out of
Yeah.
us.
Birdman was destroying you guys.
Well, he was just flying around, throwing feathers at people. He blinded you.
Oh, yeah, he did.
And then, like, the lady was, like, even with no movement or, like, spellcasting capability, she still had her mind control ability, and she was, like, mind controlling Swindrick and trying to lure him into that burning pit of fire.
Speaking of mind control, that is 1 billion% what I would have preferred in regard to Ezra.
Oh, being turned against the party?
Yeah.
Oh,
I told John going in, if I get to kill a teammate, I'll call it a win. Because I knew going in, he's going to be tricky. Strahd, I mean. He's going to be tricky. Ezra is... I have a tendency to make these characters... Tybalt is kind of the antithesis of this. I have a tendency to make characters... I say that like I'm the one making their class abilities and whatnot. I tend to have these characters that are just brutally simple. Where they do one thing,
Really
and it's
well.
really easy and simple, but they do it really, really, really well. And Ezra was that. He was just really good at not dying and killing whatever's in front of him. So I knew that going in, Strahd's gonna be tricky. He's not just gonna let me beat the shit out of him.
right.
So I'm thinking, alright, he turns me, and I literally eat the party before they have a chance to do anything. Because you guys' one anti-bad guy Ezra tactic would have been hold person.
Mm-hmm.
Or just, I guess, killing me. But that would have been really hard. Or, I guess, counterspell is another one. But I don't know if you can counterspell his like, vampire dominate thing.
I don't believe so. I think you could dispel it. I don't think you could counter it.
Either way, what ended up happening was very unfortunate to me. He put me in a dog cage.
That's awful.
Yep.
I will say, it really did... I could see Scott doing a very good job being under the effects of a dominate person.
Oh, we already know that.
Hell yeah,
that
dog.
was
There
that
was
was
hell
something
yeah.
else. there was so many moments earlier in the campaign where it was like it really felt like the Hulk in fucking Age of Ultron, where it's like, well, somebody has to deal with this, but he's going to murder something.
I can already tell you for free in your game, Kyle.
Yeah.
And, no judgment here. Annie gets dominated. She's going to squeeze that little girl till she fucking pops.
I know.
Okay? That's what's going to happen.
It's gonna be bad.
It's gonna be bad. It's gonna be really bad.
That is one of the things I know I need to do is I need to start utilizing spellcasters more, because I'm finding if I can land any kind of condition effects, those are way more useful in hit point damage at making the fight so much harder.
Also, Kane just has that cool anti-spell move, where if a caster targets her with a spell, she can use a counter to charge him immediately and attack.
Really?
That just means you have to have more than one caster, because she can only do that once per turn.
What I'm saying is it's fun to use those moves, and she's never had a chance.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I need to do. It's in part because I'm not usually a fan of casters, which is partly why I use big scary monsters all the time. Is because I like just hitting things.
Or a lot of very little monsters.
Or a lot of very little monsters and just be a bunch of yappy dogs. And
Why not a
Right.
CR21 dragon, Kyle?
Why not?
so the dragon that you guys actually fought was a CR5. And then I applied 2 templates to get it up to CR8 or 9.
Okay.
And then I
I mean,
threw
that
in...
thing did fucking like 7/8 of my health in one chunk.
Oh yeah, no, it hits fucking hard. It didn't help that it got like a bunch of bonuses to size and strength through those 2 templates. Because the regular one is only like large sized, and I increased it up to huge. And it got 2 additional strength bonuses on top of that, which got it to hit pretty dang hard. And I did all kinds of things to that dragon to make it an actual challenging
Excuse me?
encounter. And then, honestly, I should have probably cut the little baby dragons in numbers in half, because they were CR3s, and that turned out to be an issue.
You gave us
I mean, we got
16
through it.
CR3s?
Yeah.
We got through it.
Yeah, we didn't die.
No wonder we were scraping by.
You didn't try hard enough.
Well, you also went
The
in
biggest
with
problem
no
is
spell
just-
points for Isla, so she was basically tapped on spells. Tenor went in with half health, no armor, and no spell points. So, yeah.
We knew going in that there would be a shitload of little dinosaurs to fight. And we just don't have excess anymore. Excess was our clear the room.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get swarmed.
And
You
then,
guys deal with the big threat and leave the little guys to me.
Kane is going to be our clear the room guy pretty soon.
she got AoE stuff.
That's unfortunately next level.
Oh, that's fine. I think Jess has picked up a small number of AoE spells as well.
So,
Okay.
Chris, we've all talked about things that we've learned as DMs, for the most part.
Mhm.
Have you learned anything in your journeys as a DM?
Have I learned anything?
So, before Chris
Mhm.
answers here, I have heard 2 instances of Chris DMing, which was CR21 Dragon, which
Mhm.
clearly was a misstep.
Yes.
And
Yes,
then
it was.
there was the Nazi Zombies game that you ran us through that I got to be a part of. And I would say that was masterfully done and incredibly well
A lot of
balanced,
fun.
aside from the fucking bicycle.
Yeah.
Even the bicycle is just like, to be fair, the way I was seeing it at least is if we're playing Nazi Zombies, you're on round 5, you're not going to be in dire, danger here.
Right.
We were basically got to round 5 in Nazi
Right.
Zombies.
Mhm.
So, what have you learned?
What have I learned? I learned that one, I often think my players are stronger than they are.
That's the worst problem to have.
Yes, Kyle. I just said that that's something I had to learn.
Okay, wow.
Oh my
the
goodness.
amount of venom.
I'm a cobra.
It's all that
there's-
CrossFit.
Yeah. They're the snake handling. They're a section of the snake handling.
Oh
church.
my god. You can't indulge him, John.
So there's that. I need to I need to better understand my party's capabilities.
I want to really hammer home how badly you biffed it with this CR21 dragon thing we keep bringing up. We've probably explained it before in the podcast.
We have.
I just really, really want to hit this home.
Uh-huh.
We were level 7.
Yeah.
Or 6?
Mm-hmm.
What level were we? Certainly before 10.
Yeah, this...
I'm going to say level 7.
Okay, so it had a CR 3 times your guys' effective party level.
Just hold on a second. I can even get behind that.
Yeah.
Throwing us up against a dragon or any kind of creature that we have no hope of defeating. We have no chance. I'm fine with that. Could be a nice story little thing. We could see that and be like, all right, we are not equipped to do this and just turn around. We could have done that. However, Chris has elucidated to us that he fully expected us to have a hard time, but get through it. He thought we would be able to defeat a CR21 dragon, and we were way overpowered for level 7. I'll give him that.
Like, Chris, my criticism here that I think I've told you before, but whatever, we're doing it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Buckle in. Get ready to strike. My criticism for you here is you often love to give your players gimmicks to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all for that.
Sure.
But what ends up happening is this spiral where every encounter becomes trivialized, and now you have to buff your monsters so that they can fight us. And then in turn, we get more magical stuff, so then it just turns into this, like, glass tower
cycle
where we can take down anything in one turn, but the first thing that we can't take down in one turn is going to murder us.
Right.
During that fight with the dragon, like, we couldn't touch him, obviously. And he, like, he was a cloud dragon or something. What was it?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And it breathed its breath once and killed everybody in the room.
It killed everybody but the barb.
But the barb, because the barb was so thick. But the barb couldn't do anything anyway, even though she was by far the most powerful of us. Like, outside of, again, similar to Ezra, just brutal simplicity. She hit people so hard, right?
And she had just recently got a god sword.
Yeah. And there's a moment that we like to point back to.
I love this so much.
Where the barb tries to swing at the dragon. And the way Chris had described the dragon was that it was, like, smoky and cloudy, and we weren't really sure what's happening. Like, if it was actually there. That was a thought that had occurred to me, was maybe this is an illusion.
Yeah.
And the barb rolls, gets, like, a really high number on the attack, and Chris is like, you miss. And we're like, whoa, you miss? And then John and I share a look, I think. I remember John and I sharing a look, and we're just, somebody turns to Chris and is like, Chris, can you, like, tell us what's happening? Because what's going through my head is this isn't real. This isn't there. And Chris is just like, you are rolling below its AC. And I'm like, all right.
Okay. And there's ways to manage that as a DM. Or what I should say is, there's ways to rearrange the numbers for an absurdly overpowered creature to at least make it appear that the party has a chance, even if you have every intention of smashing them to bits.
Okay.
Kyle, these are things I know.
Yeah, I know. Now.
So you would dumb down...
Yeah, this is a learning experience. Yeah. You have truly learned. Even in the campaign we had directly after that it was actually pretty much caused by the events of the party dying to that dragon. I'm not going to go into the story because to be honest, Chris, I'm not attacking you. It wasn't all that compelling.
It's fine.
But I did like the consequences. I enjoyed the idea that because the earlier party had failed, they had taken a job that they were nowhere near being qualified for. They had failed, and the ramifications stretched throughout the universe, right? And I liked the way you interpreted that. And in that group, unfortunately, the game just kind of died.
Yeah.
I got the impression you lost interest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll say that's probably one of the best things a DM can do for their players, though, is show how meaningful the player's actions are and what the consequences
Hell yeah.
of the campaign are.
Even if you just
Hell yeah.
completely biff it and everybody ends up in a TPK, if you start back in the same universe, I would be wholly invested had I been there to be like, oh, we're dealing with the leftovers of the previous.
Yeah, we're living in the world where the hero failed, and
The Wake.
the big bad evil guy won.
Right. That's a good campaign. By the way, in my campaign, that's coming up, guys. That's coming up.
Is it Webster?
No, you guys won't see Webster for a while. You will see the ramifications of his actions, though.
Okay. Is he the big bad evil guy? He's pretty small.
He at best will be a side boss.
Oh.
I apologize for making that he's a boss character potentially if you guys search him out, which almost certainly you will.
One of us is directly invested in finding him.
You guys, he has no investment in you guys.
Right.
That's fair. I mean, he didn't have any investment in us when he was with us.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He does not give a flying fuck about you guys, and the only reason you would fight him is if you guys hunt him down.
I can't wait till we find him and we're like, Excess died. And he's like, who?
Who? What?
I don't even know. You took everything from me. I don't.
Oh
even
shit!
know
Was that
you.
the cowboy? I don't see the cowboy anywhere.
That would go
Looks like-
very poorly.
looks like the anime girl grew a beard and got really buff.
Oh, that's what happened. Oh,
no.
no,
Oh,
she
man.
shaves because people kept pulling her beard in the fight.
Slight spoilers. You guys will shortly here get face to face with the Skelepope Supreme.
Skelepope.
Webster assassinated a very powerful political figure who was kind of the glue that was holding his faction together, and now there's a massive fucking power vacuum. Skelepope thinks he would be the best choice, along with several other groups. Additionally, he was kind of a buffer for several of the empires that really don't like that they're, a nation of undead. So you guys might see the ramifications of a lot of people really being upset about, not getting their way having signed the armistice. And now they see an opportunity.
The one problem with this is that all but one of us are completely separated from the events.
Yep.
Because all the people who were not separated died.
Yep.
Yep.
That's accurate.
Which is unfortunate.
Or were the cause of it and then left.
No offense to you, John. The biggest loss, from a story perspective, by far, is Excess.
Oh.
Because Excess, having to confront Webster, and just, it's so juicy, it's so anime, it's so drama,
Mm-hmm.
of her being like, why did you do this? Why? And he's like, literally, who are you?
Right. I have a question for you, Chris, since you're here on the subject, and I don't believe as of right now I have plans for Excess to come back.
Okay.
So I'm curious, how would that have gone down, do you think, on Excess's side?
It depends on how much growth she made between the points.
How long it takes.
Well, no, not necessarily, because length may not necessarily factor in. Excess was working on something arguably worse than what Webster did.
I can tell you if she succeeded, and he did that, the full force of that would have been dealt upon him.
Wait, what are we talking
really?
about here?
Okay. So,
What are we
Excess
talking
was trying to build a helmet to allow him to take over Isla's brain and start conjuring blood stars as a weapon.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's very Akira. Sure.
Yeah. My space laser.
Oh, that was our Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
That was the plan, yeah.
Yeah, so we did this thing, right? And it sort of changed her personality. Where Kyle was like, you want to make an empire.
When did we
That's
do?
When did this
yeah,
happen
when-
and why?
When-
we had to draw cards, and I drew 2 of them.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
That fucking
so-
deck that you guys still have.
Yeah. So from that point on, I was like, okay, I have that in the back of my head. And then the Blood Star happened, and I was like, well, if I was somebody thinking of how I could control a large portion of the galaxy, that's a thing. That is totally a thing. If I could figure out how to control that and make that happen when I wanted to, I could totally take over vast amounts of the galaxy.
You make Isla a nuclear deterrent.
That do it. Fuck, I would get in so much trouble for even remotely attempting to allow that.
So, ta-da!
Oh. It might have been fortuitous, at least for me as the DM, that Excess blew herself up. Because that would
Cody, have you thought about what your next campaign would be at all?
Yeah. I've thought about it a lot.
Would it take place on the same world still?
It would. Yep.
Like in the future?
Future, maybe past, maybe concurrently with what
Yeah,
you
he
guys
was
are doing.
floating an idea with me, and I thought it sounded very compelling.
Oh, were you not in that call, John?
I was not.
So I've got this idea for at least a one-shot. I think something really cool you can do with one-shots with your world is to build out the history of your world. Like, set the one-shot during a important historical moment. And I would do this one-shot back in mythical times when the giants and the dragons were having their huge war. And each of you would play as a mythical hero in Kytheran mythology. You'd be like demigods or like a Hercules character or an Achilles character. And you would have like your Jason and the Argonauts all go off on an adventure during this war. And because you were all demigods and like heroes, you would all have like magical boons or like divine rights that would color your characters. And the results of that one shot or that small campaign would be canon inside the history of my world.
Okay.
Those are always really cool one-shots.
That's also kind of my thought on it, Cody.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have ideas for one-shots that
Ideas.
that would change the story proper, right?
In regard to what?
So,
exactly?
like, as an example, I was debating whether or not I wanted Genasi to be a playable race or to even be in the world.
Yeah.
So I had come up with a Genasi creation story that would then become a one-shot where everybody was a Genasi. And if you guys survived the one-shot, or depending on how you guys survive the one-shot, would determine if they're a playable race, how prevalent they are, or if they exist.
That's really cool. I'd be totally down
that's
for that
cool.
kind of
Yeah.
I'd be down for that.
Like that's like player consequence on a nearly meta level.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's cool.
Which would also mean like you would have like weapons, and so later when you guys go to the exact same dungeon that took place in, you would find these burnt up or stone or ice skeletons holding these weapons,
Mm-hmm.
and they would be the people that you played as in the one shot,
Yep.
dead or whatever. Yeah.
I think that I was talking with Scott about this. I think having a history to magical weapons is so important. I think every magical weapon has to have a history, That's why I always tell everybody, if you're gonna have a magical weapon, it has to have a name. At least. And
in 5th edition, I can definitely see with that. Pathfinder, that doesn't work, unfortunately.
Why not?
Why not?
It's just Pathfinder just kind of really expects you to have magical weapons. Like, they're just part of how the gear breaks down. There's certainly like artifact weapons, but like every magical weapon there's a ton of them. Like, Pathfinder is incredibly high level magic. So it's just everywhere. And that's the problem. Like, all of them being named would be like every sword being named.
Well, it's okay. That's fine. It's just your weapon is important. Like, your weapon has a name. You don't have to name every magical weapon, but the weapons that the party have, surely.
And I mean, like, the cool thing about history, I think, is, say you're fighting enemy A who has a magical sword. He knows the name of the sword, but, like, the moment that you kill him, maybe the history of that sword just died with him.
Yeah. Nobody knows.
Like, Scott's samurai. You know, like, maybe his master passed that sword down to him right before his master died. Maybe his master was the last lore keeper of that sword. So the moment the samurai died in the Pathfinder campaign, like, that sword died with him.
Ooh, I just came up with a
Just a chunk of metal.
fantastic curse to put on that sword.
What sword?
This
sword,
this
the
idea
hypothetical
you're
sword
talking about where it has a history and stuff. I just came up with an idea of a cursed sword where anybody who like takes a hold of it is the only person in the universe to know its name, and when they no longer know its name, they are retroactively removed from history so that its history can never be spoken to anyone. So, like, dying with this sword in your possession means that you are erased from history.
People forgot you existed.
That's pretty metal.
Hmm.
Go ahead.
What was I going to say? I was going to say something.
Intelligent
I also
weapons
love
are
the
excellent.
idea that we were broaching about this in the same conversation I was having with Cody a while ago. I like the idea that a weapon's potency is due to its history. The best example I have is Tybalt's hammer. He's explained to me on an occasion that Octavianus, yes, the hammer of Octavianus. He's explained to me that it was just a giant's forging hammer. It was a blacksmith's hammer that a giant happened to use. But it's big, and I'm the one using it now, and it's like a maul for me. And I like the idea that it was passed down and was just a tool, but then an ancient Kytheran named Octavianus wielded it, and now this weapon has a story. And when I have it, like, why would a giant's blacksmithing hammer be able to smite people? You know what I mean?
Right.
But now that it's been wielded by this ancient hero, it is artifact status simply because of the history attached to it. Now it's in my hands, and it's like retrocausal.
So,
Right.
like, Glaive Davidson had lightning abilities, right?
Yeah,
Not
we
at first.
bestowed. Yeah, it was just a Glaive. Glaive Davidson was just a Glaive, but then we put Glaive Davidson in the like magic lightning machine, and it gave Glaive Davidson magic lightning powers.
Well, so it would be like, to me, it would be like, well, Zeus got some, mana in his teeth, so he took a toothpick and cleared it, and then he flicked it away, and it landed on Earth, and it was found, and then anointed with electrical abilities.
Sure. I just like the idea that the history of the object is what creates its importance, not only historically important, it is now...
Chris, how do you think every
magically
lightning javelin was created?
Toothpicks.
Okay.
You think humans and elves made that shit?
Scott,
Toothpicks.
I just want to hear if you have any campaign ideas for something that you might think about trying to run at some point.
No. I don't think I can be a DM, first off, because, like, I try to impress upon you guys. I am not a creative person. I am not creative enough to, like have my own, like, I love the idea that you go on about, Cody, where, and you've exemplified it so well in this campaign, where stuff keeps happening outside of us. It makes me think of diverting my attention away from a clock. The clock, not even necessarily the clock keeps ticking and time keeps going. The gears are still turning. The machine is still working. It is a machine in my head. And I can't do that in a believable way. And it would make me feel... And I'm not saying that you're the reason for this. God, no. You're not the reason for me not wanting to be a DM because I feel like you'd overshadow me. It's because I don't feel confident that I could build a world that feels alive. It's hard enough to build a character that feels alive.
It is very difficult to do.
Mm-hmm. There have been plenty of plates that I tried to keep spinning that I just dropped.
Yeah.
Right.
Same. It's a matter of practice more than anything, I would say. Like, yes, you do need some semblance of ability to improvise on the fly and come up with these ideas, but it's like you have to practice that to get good at it.
The one, like, idea I had for a campaign, I'm pretty sure I've told all of you at one point or another this, and it was just kind of a novel idea. And I liked, this is a huge spoiler for the whole campaign. The crux of it would be, it's like a Groundhog Day type of scenario, where, except much longer form.
Okay.
There's some big storm on some island, and nobody knows why this big storm happened, but it's constantly spinning and churning, and it's been there for so long and become part of the normal society on this island that it's become a tourist attraction. People show up, and like different regions of the storm, because it's that big, different regions of the storm have different like natural phenomena happening, and so like villages would crop up and turn into cities that would then be like, come to this place to see the crazy lightning in the sky, isn't that neat? Or like, come to the south part of the storm to see all the crazy ice formations that happen in the winds, isn't that neat? That is really cool. And the campaign would have been you guys trying to get to the center of the storm. And all in all, the reason you would get to the center of the storm and some magical BS had happened where there was a wizard who had caused the storm by some nonsense about combining divine and arcane magics, yada yada yada. But you find out through this Groundhog Day scenario, you'd have to keep reliving the same thing, because once you get to the middle, there's this huge like elemental, and he's like infused with divine and arcane energies, and that would be the big boss fight at the end. And once you destroy him, everything goes like resets. And you guys are the only ones there because you're inside this like pocket of the storm that's protected from the temporal, whatever the bullshit. And you just be back landing on the island from your ship, and you're like, and you just be like, what the hell? What happened? So you'd have to redo the journey again. And through redoing the journey over and over, you'd come to learn that this was like a failsafe type of thing, because this wizard had discovered some cosmic entity that eats universes. And so the only way he knew it was coming, and the only way that he could possibly stave off its eventual, arrival, is by doing some bullshit with this elemental thing. And he's like, well, what if this elemental thing eventually falls? The only way I could possibly solve that scenario is by creating like a save point. And so
okay.
Either you guys would end up finding this out and stopping the save point and ending the world, or ending the universe, I should say, where this guy eats the universe and it stops being remade at the save, or you would have found some way to stop this.
Honestly,
cosmic
even
Cthulhu
knowing
entity.
all of that, I would still play that campaign with you.
Well, the problem is that's as far as it got. I don't know what to do. I wishy-washed, like, I don't know what cool, compelling way to make it end. How would you guys fight some cosmic entity?
Like that's probably part of it, is like we are in that Majora's Mask thing where we don't know, and right now neither does the DM.
Well, you know what, Scott?
But
This is where we go into Final Fantasy X, okay? We shoot off its left arm, we shoot off its right arm, we get that bitch to land right on the fucking religious capital of the world, and we go dick and deep throat it. Right there.
This all even came about because I thought about this campaign when I was like 20. This was that long ago.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And it only even came about because I started reading about entropy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a bad guy named Entropy? And that's what he did.
I have a bad guy named Entropy in my game.
And his whole thing is just causal. He is inevitable. Like Thanos.
Right.
And so entropy would have been this. You would have been fighting the force of entropy functionally.
Right. I mean, I'm still all in on this. Like, I like the idea, even knowing going in, like, we could be in the middle of the time loop already of us, and, like, our characters know that this is happening because we've had this conversation already, and I think it would be interesting to start that game from that point where we know we're in a time loop trying to figure out how to get out of it.
The one thing I bring to being a DM, I feel, is I can just spout fake names all day long.
Yeah.
You are extreme. I have always been extremely jealous of your Pokemon teams for this exact reason.
Yeah.
Because, like, you have, like, what did you name your Metagross? And you named, the bull Pokemon, Tauros. You named it, like, you named one of Alistar. I forget who.
I don't remember
but you
at
had
all. I don't know why you would remember that.
Because
this was like 24 years ago.
This
John.
drives me nuts. No, you had all these awesome names, and then like I would name my Pikachu Chad or something.
Yeah, I always name my Pikachus like Greg, Alan, Dave.
But then you had all these awesome names that would go with like your full evolution Pokemon, and I'm like, man, I'm so jealous of that. Come on, Ben.
I always name my Pokemon because I didn't like the idea of it's like having a dog and naming a dog.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that like a 3-year-old will do where like they hear Pikachu just saying Pikachu all the time. You're like, that's a nice name. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm still all in, Scott. If you want to try this at some point, I genuinely encourage you to, because I would be ecstatic to try it.
I appreciate the encouragement. It is not a reality.
I think it would be good.
That, and I like to think that I'm okay at voices, but what's going to happen is all the guys will just end up having 2 or 3. It'll be like, or that's what it would be.
That's no worse than
everybody
John.
Ends up being that.
Well, well, you know, all shots
all of yours
aside,
is-
I'm gonna duck down real fast, take some cover. Scott, you're challenging yourself out of that when we get to my campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see it.
My character, I don't mind telling everybody. Everybody already knows. And my character can only speak things that have been said. He's a bird guy. He can only speak things that have been said to him before, and he's like mimicking it, like a parrot.
So you have to say it in the way that the
So-
other person said it.
Yeah. So when we first start, I'm gonna give myself a whole notebook page, 1 line each, of things that have been said to him, and I like put a little note next to each quote to like remind me what the accent will be.
I'm so excited because, like, I know already you have at least 2 accents, and then whatever Andy does with Cav, just like the way he has his speech style, I guess.
I don't know if I'll
That
be
is
able to
one
do
of the
this.
things that I found also helps with varying your voices as a DM is just, you don't have to do a voice, just have very different speech patterns, and that helps sell it.
Yeah,
Big time.
absolutely. I mean, that's the Barack Obama impression. It's just his cadence.
Right?
Yeah.
That's one of
Cadence,
My
that's it.
fellow Americans.
one of the
There it is.
one of the most interesting ones I think I've ever done is the Bumblebee radio thing.
Right.
I've done that a few times, and that's, I think, something you're gonna have to do with this character.
What do you mean you've done the Bumblebee radio thing?
This is where
When we talked to the van that one time, it was talking to Kane through the radio, I think.
might have been
Oh,
Isla.
right.
Maybe Isla.
It talks through the radio. Did it come through that eventually it started smoothing out into an actual voice?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad I pulled that off.
So I don't want to
Well-
push anybody off the call, but I've been having to take a big old grumper for the past 30 minutes. So
Right.
you guys can
I
keep talking,
get it.
but I need to go.
Oh, we can wrap up.
Yeah, that's a good-
we're an
that's a
hour
good
and
ending
25
point.
in.
That was a good D&D talk, which is not what I intended for this to be tonight, but it was...
Can we name this episode Cody's Big Ol' Grumper?
Yeah!
Well, I think that's a good opportunity for us all to leave. Number 1, signing off.
Oh,
I thought I
Number
was
one,
number one.
also
Number
signing
3.
off.
Number 1.
jacking off.
Oh, okay.
Signing off.
Okay.
Goodbye, everybody.
There we were.